French people held a series of commemorative activities to mark the 75th anniversary of the Paris liberation from the Nazi German occupation during the Second World War. On Sunday, the commemoration started at the landmark of Paris, the Eiffel Tower. The Group of 7 summit in Biarritz, France, entered into its second day, with leaders of the world's wealthiest countries going through a packed schedule on Sunday trying to reach a consensus. But divisions on Iran's nuclear deal and trade issues were hard to bridge. Brazilians took to the streets again on Sunday to protest President Jair Bolsonaro's lack of leadership while the Amazon forest burns. Despite having ordered the army to battle the blazes, new fires have been spotted, which is prompting more anger over the slow government response. That's all for our top stories today. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. 62 people have been confirmed dead and 98 others injured after torrential rains swept Sudan recently. Lieutenant General Ahmed Abdoun Hamad, governor of Khartoum, Sudanese capital, paid a visit to areas hit by the floods on Saturday. Wad Ramli and Wasi in Sudan were battered by torrential rain since early morning from the east as the Nile rose to 17.18 meters, the highest in recent decades. The rain flooded many areas, including Sidr, Hila Alil, Hela al-Suk, and Wasi al-Wasat. We have mounted necessary relief operations, including evacuating all affected families and residents to the east of Wad Ramli, said Ahmad. According to the Sudanese Ministry of Health, 65 areas and 257 villages across the country were stricken by the rain. The subsequent flood destroyed 22,676 houses and partially toppled 13,074 houses. It also killed 3,636 animals and damaged 150 public facilities. At noon, 6 firefighters drove a firefighting truck of the Second World War era to the Eiffel Tower and unfurled a French national flag. This scene recreated the moment 75 years ago when 6 firefighters braved the guns and bullets of German soldiers and hoisted the French flag on the Eiffel Tower. The visitors were all impressed by this playback of history. I feel very proud to be able to play a role in this team. We did this to commemorate our predecessors who took part in the glory battle of Paris liberation. It is worth to be mentioned that as part of the army, 15 Paris firefighters gave their lives during the liberation of Paris. We should not forget the sacrifice of these people, and it is also important to avoid repeating the mistakes of the history, said Grenesh, a performer of the historical scene. Paris was occupied by Nazi Germany from 1940 to 1944. On 19th August 1944, the battles of Paris liberation began, and French people took back control of the whole city on August 25th, following the entrance of the 2nd Armored Division led by French General Philippe Leclerc de Haute-Cloque. Right now, this part of history is showcased at the General Leclerc de Haute-Cloque and Liberation of Paris Museum, Jean Moulin Museum, to remind the people of the past and to cherish the peace. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif arrived in Biarritz on Sunday afternoon. The visit was made at the invitation of French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian in a bid to continue discussions on recent initiatives between the presidents of Iran and France, according to Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi. French media reported that French President Emmanuel Macron will deliver a message to Iran on behalf of the 7 countries following the leaders' dinner on Saturday. However, on Sunday morning, US President Donald Trump denied this report, when asked about the issue. Experts say this reflects the strained relations among the member states of G7.
Unquestionably, on the big issues that really matter, on climate change, on international trade, on Iran, there is no unanimity amongst the G7 powers. It is very much a sort of G6+1 format right now. That is what we've seen at the previous two G7 summits in which President Trump has attended, and I see no reason why things might change at this summit here.
In terms of trade issue, Trump received pressure from British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was widely believed as his closest ally among G7. During a bilateral meeting on Sunday morning with Trump, Johnson made it clear that he hopes trade frictions could be avoided.
That is on the minds of the other leaders here, to try to contain this escalating global trade war. We've seen no evidence that the American president is willing to walk back on his ratcheting up of his escalation of the trade war.
Analysts believe that the tension among the member states of G7 mainly comes from the unpredictability of President Trump. And still no one knows whether there will be a joint statement after this G7 summit on Monday.
They'll probably call it a chair's statement, given that Mr. Macron has said no communique, so they won't use that word, but it will be pre-negotiated, pre-agreed. The drama at the moment is whether there'll be one or two. One as traditional by Mr. Macron as the host, the chair of this summit, but there had been suggestions from the White House that it was actually a summit tradition to have the incoming host jointly present the results of the current summit. There's no factual record that had ever taken place, but nonetheless, I guess the White House can kind of invent traditions.
As hundreds of new fires have been detected in Brazil's Amazon rainforest, protests in defense of the world's largest tropical rainforest are taking place across the country and outside Brazilian diplomatic missions around the world. Protesters, including celebrities and activists in Rio, were blaming President Bolsonaro's pro-agribusiness policies for the unprecedented crisis. Bolsonaro initially blamed non-governmental organizations for the fires, saying they wanted to discredit him. According to Brazil's Space Climate Monitoring Agency, more than 1,000 new fires have spotted between Thursday and Friday. Under growing national and international pressure, Bolsonaro ordered the army to tackle the fires, and military aircraft are now dumping liters of water on the massive blazes. Criticism of the government among Brazilians remain widespread.
We are defending the environmental cause against the policies and the rhetoric that is being articulated by the current government.
It's the destruction of our forest, of our life and our medicine, because the Amazon is our mother, the mother of all of us. It's the air we breathe. It's the lungs of the world.
I think he's pretending to combat the fires, but the ideology that has caused the fires and that will continue to fuel the destruction of the Amazon at the expense of all of humanity will necessarily continue, because it's something very fundamental to the entire Bolsonaro movement.
Official monitoring recorded more than 70,000 forest fires in Brazil this year, an 84% increase over the same period in 2018. More than half were in the Amazon region, and scientists suspect most were deliberately set to clear land for cattle and crops. Rarely have Brazilians united in protest over climate change in the ways they have these over last few days. But with Amazon forest out of control and international condemnation threatening trade agreements and boycotts of Brazilian beef, there is now an added economic dimension to the crisis. Paris is the third most visited city in the world, with 50 million tourists exploring the city last year. But the city seems to have enough of some kinds of tourism, particularly large groups on tour buses, and wants to restrict them from its center. The City of Love is on every traveler's bucket list, but Parisians haven't always been the best at welcoming them.
Service oriented, so sometimes even they are quite rude, you know. So far it's not so. It hasn't been so comfortable when you are in a restaurant or those kind of things.
Rudeness is not the norm, but just a byproduct of a tourist capital.
We're finding them fantastic. We're staying in a lovely hotel. When we arrived yesterday, they couldn't have been more helpful. We came into Montmartre yesterday, went to a couple of places for coffee. Everyone was lovely, really friendly.
It's the mayor's office accused of being unwelcoming following a crackdown on bed and breakfast, with a law limiting short-term rentals to 120 nights a year. Now it is tour buses that are in City Hall's sites. There are 4 hop-on, hop-off tour bus companies operating in Paris at the moment, driving tens of thousands of tourists every year. But City Hall said they cause pollution, clog the streets, and take up too many parking spaces. The city wants to encourage tourists to use public transport, walk, and cycle instead. Showing tourists the sights from a double-decker is set to get together. But companies have to prove before September 10th that their vehicles will be using 100% clean energy by 2024, or they will lose their licenses to operate. The new rules also cut the number of tour buses allowed to 36 buses per company, something the companies say is unfair. According to the city's own figures, only 8% of visitors went on organized tours last year. So a crackdown on buses should not hit the city's $23.8 billion of annual earnings from tourism too hard. Guides say they are particularly popular with certain nationalities like Chinese. And with or without the double-deckers, the City of Light is likely to keep drawing crowds. French people held a series of commemorative activities to mark the 75th anniversary of the Paris liberation from the Nazi German occupation during the Second World War. On Sunday, the commemoration started at the landmark of Paris, the Eiffel Tower. The Group of 7 summit in Biarritz, France, entered into its second day, with leaders of the world's wealthiest countries going through a packed schedule on Sunday trying to reach a consensus. But divisions on Iran's nuclear deal and trade issues were hard to bridge. Brazilians took to the streets again on Sunday to protest President Jair Bolsonaro's lack of leadership while the Amazon forest burns. Despite having ordered the army to battle the blazes, new fires have been spotted, which is prompting more anger over the slow government response. That's the end of our newscast of the day, but keep watching Gabon 24 for further news.